Welcome, and we'll start off with our bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And let's go to our screen share, and we're of course doing Parshat vaYetzei. Okay, so we had just left the place where he had come to spend the night, and he took the stones and placed them around his head, and here we go. Vayachalom, and he dreamt. V'hinei, and behold, sulam mutzav arza, a ladder standing on the earth. V'rosho magia hashamayim, and its head reaching the heavens, or towards the heavens. V'hinei, and behold, Malachei Elokim, angels of God, Olim v'yordim, going up and coming down, bo, on it, on the ladder, is what the pshat would appear to be. So let's take a look at the Rashi. Olim v'yordim. So Rashi jumps at the fact that it says they were going up and coming down. And that seems strange, because where do we expect angels to be? I'm asking. Where would you expect angels to be? You expect them to be up in heaven. Yes, up in heaven. So how come they were going up and then coming down? Shouldn't it have been coming down and going up? Wouldn't that make more sense?
But God was standing right next to the ladder.
Yeah.
God was standing there, and his angels were going up and down.
Well, okay, that's a possibility, Harlan. Anyway, Rashi has a different explanation. Olim tchila, first of all they went up, v'achar kach, then they came down. Malachim, so he explains, Malachim shelivuhu ba'aretz, okay, those angels who accompanied him in the land, meaning the land of Israel. Ein yotzim, they do not leave the land of Israel. So there's all kinds of connotations, right, that one can associate with that concept, that of the holiness and the uniqueness of the land of Israel. Let's just finish this Rashi and maybe comment a little further. Okay, Ein yotzim chutza la'aretz. They don't leave, they don't go outside the land of Israel. Va'alu rakia, and they went up to the heavens. V'yardu malachei chutza la'aretz lilvoto. And the angels who are responsible for outside the land of Israel, they came down to accompany him. And by the way, there is a general belief that each one of us has at least one angel that is with us all the time.
Really?
We have a guard, yes, that we all have a guardian angel. We do have that. So, yeah, just that there was something else that I did want to add on it. Now, maybe Rashi is going to mention this later, but I know that there is a commentary about the fact that it says angels of God going up and coming down, and bo, right, means in it literally, and because it's talking about the ladder, our understanding is. But bo could also mean on him. And there is an interpretation that says these angels were going up and down and treading on him, and possibly implying the tribulations that the Jewish people were going to have in the future, but at the same time being protected. So maybe Rashi's going to mention it later on, but we'll see.
Also, isn't there an interpretation of your dimbo meaning criticizing him?
Yes, I think you're right. Yes, right. Interesting, right? What the, thinking, just trying to allow one's mind to think and tease around what all that has to do. What's its greater implications? Right? And maybe, I mean, one thing that jumps at me is that the higher up you are on the ladder, the more you are there to be criticized. That someone who has a very high position has higher responsibilities as a result, and would then come under closer scrutiny, and this is just true in life in general. that if you have, the more power you have, the more exposed you are, the higher you up in society, the more responsible you are. It just goes along with it. Look at how Moses was judged, right? One infraction and boom. So there's equalization on this level.
There's also the way to approach a dream where people say that everything and everybody in a dream is oneself.
Ah,
So,
interesting. That's
so
lovely.
if Yaakov is dreaming a ladder, then he's the ladder, and Olim Dimbo, it's like, I mean, it's understandable why at that point in his life he would be he'd be likely to kind of go back and forth, up and down, I should say, between thinking of himself as something really great
Yes.
and something really terrible.
Yes.
He had just, betrayed his father, betrayed his brother, is running for his life from his brother's anger, and maybe he's capable of seeing his brother's point of view. They're twins, right? He's got to be able to see his brother's point of view, so he can see himself as a villain. But on the other hand, he realizes he has these qualities that make him superior in some ways. So he's like, putting himself way up high and then way down low and up and down.
Right. That's lovely, really and truly. I had never heard that interpretation, and I think it's a great interpretation.
Well, actually, it's partly right. It's not so much that everything and everyone symbolizes you exactly. It's that because you created all those objects and all those people, then there are elements of you and everything. It may symbolize you, but it also may be something else that's very personal to you. So the ladder doesn't have to be Jacob, psychoanalytically speaking. It could be something that Jacob needed and created for himself in that dream, to represent the fact that he wanted to have some support going up. So it doesn't have to be that the ladder is Jacob. That is a possibility, but the concept is a little more general. But it has to do with the fact that it all comes from.
We
If I
lost your
dream about you,
voice.
Rabbi, it's not necessarily that I'm dreaming about you. I'm dreaming.
Right.
I'm projecting everything from in me onto the character that looks like you in the dream.
Yeah.
So it's about projecting what your personal interpretations and needs. And so when you analyze a dream, you have to think about what that might mean and what the symbol of a ladder, not according to Freud, but according to you, might mean.
So
right, I love
funny.
it. I love the idea that maybe he dreams this ladder for himself because he's going up, and he's always wanted to go up. He's always wanted to reach a higher level. But maybe in the dream, what is revealed to him is that there's two ladders can go both ways.
And this ladder is going both ways. Incidentally, so Lauren, at the end of your explanation, you used a word that I was coming to my mind with, which is the projection, right? That essentially you're projecting things that are deeply, very, very deep inside of yourself, into this dream. I did want to say something else, that one of the things, the narrative regarding Jacob is the longest narrative in the book of Genesis. And one of the things I absolutely love about this part of Genesis is that with Jacob, you see character development, as you do with Judah, by the way, and with Joseph, that the whole idea of the development of the character is so brought out in this story that started off with Toldot. It's not so clear with Isaac, or not so clear with Abraham. We don't necessarily see character development there. But here we see a person who is so complex, who we can't just simply say is a good guy, right? And yet how you work that out. And I think that in that sense, the Bible is so, classic and current, and has something to say to all of us, never to sort of look at ourselves and say, there's no way we can change this. There are ways in which Jacob is so deeply flawed, clearly, and you look at how he suffers. He suffers a lot, and yet in that suffering, right? He says to, sorry to interrupt my own statement, right? At the end when he meets Pharaoh, he says, my life was few and bitter and something like that. He doesn't use the term bitter, but he does use an adjective that describes something painful and what have you. I mean, you look at what he goes through, and we'll try and outline it even clearer in the narrative and in the course of this, how the storyline goes. I mean, he's going to fall in love with Rachel. He's not going to wind up with her to begin with. I mean, I like to say, if Jacob had scripted his life, how many wives would he have had, right? And then, of course, Rachel's barren, right? For years and years and years, she isn't able to conceive. I mean, all these sorts of things. So we talk about the tests with which God tested Abraham, but believe me, the tests with which God tested Jacob are probably even closer to home. They hit closer to home than any of the other tests. So, Beth, based on how you started to tease out this particular image that we have, I think that in some ways this is all saying that it's predicting it, it's foreshadowing it. At any rate, let's keep going. All right, I think we got through that. Yes. So Yud Gimel, Vehine Hashem Nitzav Alav. But notice all these Vehines, right? They're emphatics, right? To emphasize whatever's happening. There's a remarkable thing that's happening here, right? Behold, if you want to try and translate the word Hine, basically the word Hine means here. Hashem Nitzav Alav, right? Hashem, the Lord, was standing over him. Vayomer, and Hashem said, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem, Elokei Avraham, the God of Abraham, Avicha, your father, of Abraham, of your father, Velohei Yitzchak, and the God of Isaac. Haaretz asher ata shochev aleha, the land upon which you are resting or lying, lecha, to you, etnena ulzarecha, I will give it to you and your offspring. So Rashi goes into this. All right. Sorry. Nitzav alav, standing over him. And Rashi explains that the reason why the Torah tells us that, to stand over him, because sometimes the word nitzav, by the way, has a negative connotation, and it could be standing in opposition to something. And Rashi clarifies that it's l'shomro, to guard him. And of course, if in fact we looked at that the angels, that vision of the ladder and the angels going up and down and sort of seeing the negative sides of things as well, we would want Hashem to be guarding him. That would be an important element. Let's go on here. Oh, I know what I wanted to share with you. I've been giving a lot of thought to this. We say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu, and I really think that Hashem and Elokeinu goes together. And so notice Hashem is it's a statement, Hashem, but Elokeinu is possessive. And I feel that the word Elokim describes our apprehension, our comprehension of God, of Hashem. That Hashem represents the transcendent, the complete and the unknowable, and the past and the future. When we say Hashem Echad, that God, that notion of the divine, of divinity and a divine being is so beyond us. And the reason why we so often say, use Elohim in the possessive case is to explain that tiny little part where we take God seriously, because the word Elohim has the connotation of a judge. In other words, we look at our own lives in relationship to this very difficult, very beyond us idea of this existence, and recognize its relationship to us. And that's why it's the possessive. It's that element, so to speak, that human beings have of the divine. And that's that's why we would say Hashem Elokeinu, that part of Hashem that we are able to conceive of. And so we have Avraham Avicha, your father. So notice, of course, Abraham wasn't his father, literally, right? He was his grandfather. But it certainly is an example here in the Torah of how we can use these relationships in a little broader sense, because Abraham started this whole process. So let's continue. I'm taking those as lots of amens
Rabbi,
there. Yes,
Rabbi.
yes.
So is this related to you're saying instead of the way people usually say prayers, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, to say instead Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam?
Yes, I'm saying that we could say it that way and that it makes a lot of sense. In other words, even though what happens is so often we'll put a Baruch or Baruch Shemor between Hashem and Elokeinu. And I think what's happening is
The
there's an
Baruch
intent.
Hu Baruch Shemo
Yes,
usually comes at the Chatima Bracha where there isn't an Elokeinu.
you're right. But you do say it at the brachot at the beginning of the service, where you say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam Shenatan Lasech V'Bina Lavchin Ben Yom Ve'Layla. So there is a tradition that I'm aware of the moment you hear Hashem, that the word for Adoshem, you say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo.
Okay,
So
I
since it
haven't
comes
seen
before Elokeinu, you interrupt it to do that. Excuse me 1 second. I'm going to mute. Sorry, I needed to cough and clear my throat, and I didn't want you to have to hear that. Yes. So Baruch Atah, you are Baruch, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem who is our God, Melech HaOlam, and that is now an acknowledgement of God as the ultimate controller, ruler of the universe. So there are times when I'll say the bracha that way, and there are times when I'll say the bracha the other way. And Judith, I think the ambiguity is intentional, because who are we, after all, to say brachot and to be able to make these statements? And so I think there's some intended humility that is built in to even the words that we say. That in some ways,
Could you explain, Judith, again, the division of the words there? I didn't completely get what you're saying about that.
Shira Beth, you'll need to explain the question a little bit. I'm not sure I understand your question, because I
Well,
thought I just did.
Well, I just don't understand. I mean, maybe I missed it. It's pairing the words to 2 and 2.
Yes, 2, 2, and 2 instead of 3 and 3. Yes.
I got this from Rabbi Miller, and
Oh.
I've been teaching, 11-year-olds about it. And so I do need to understand more.
So I'm asking, what's the difference in meaning if you do it 2 by 2 rather than 3 by 3?
Oh, okay. So if you say it 3 by 3, Baruch Atah Hashem, you, O Shem, are blessed. And then you pause and you say, Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, our God, King of the universe. Okay, so you're not when you put Hashem and Elokeinu, there's a slightly different connotation there, right? Because you're then putting an emphasis now. When you say Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, then in a sense you're putting the emphasis on the Melech HaOlam element of Hashem. All right, but then when you say Baruch Atah Hashem, likewise you're putting the emphasis on the fact that Hashem is Baruch. But when you say Baruch Atah, you're simply now addressing, you're introducing a statement, of blessing. And then when you say Hashem Elokeinu, what you're emphasizing there is that Hashem is Hashem Elokeinu. That's what we want to emphasize.
I mean,
And then simply describing him as Melech HaOlam. Yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
When you say the Shema, and I know it's not the same thing, but you still say, the couplet, Shem
You
Elokeinu.
do.
And
Yes.
that's by necessity, because then it goes back to another Ado Shem, but
Right.
you are making that, connection in that verse.
Right. Because you really want to acknowledge at that particular moment the idea of accepting God's sovereignty. I love the last sort of explanation that I've thought through, that I've learned and read and what have you, that the Shema Yisrael part is actually addressing Jacob. That the Yisrael there is Yisrael Saba, Yisrael our grandfather, and that what we're doing is we're addressing Jacob. And a lovely, lovely interpretation that Rashi, I think, brings out, but I didn't understand for years, is that the fact is that if we're trying to declare Hashem's unity, all we had to do was say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Echad. That's all we would have had to say. And that would have been a declaration of God's unity. And the fact that you add the Hashem Elokeinu is saying, is in a sense declaring your commitment to perform mitzvot, because it is through the performance of mitzvot that we tacitly and very affirmatively declare that Hashem is in fact Elokeinu. That what Hashem says, that what we understand Hashem to want of us, we have this deep, deep, deep desire to perform. That this is all about, that the meaning of our lives is bundled up with the desire to perform the divine will, which I think is again a way of saying, just a different way of saying, how we are trying to link our lives to the universe, to our understanding of this huge, right, measureless universe, both in terms of time and space and complexity and stuff, and saying, this is our role and our mission, is to perform the divine will. That's what it's all about, ultimately. Whatever's joy, whatever satisfaction, etc., is all linked to that. So, yeah. It took me a long time to sort of struggle through trying to understand the implications of, as delightful as I think it is, to think of Shema Yisrael as being saying, "Hear, O Jacob, hear Israel, we're your descendants, and we're still holding on to this. We still believe and affirm what you yourself, came to affirm and believe, or learned from Abraham your father. And in that sense, Abraham's your father." Let's
The
go a
trope
little.
of the
Go ahead, please.
the trope of the Shema in the
Yes.
Torah
Yes.
is Shema Yisrael, Shema Yisrael, Adoshem Elokeinu, Adoshem Echad.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
It's 2 and 2 and 2.
Okay. Judith, I guess I need you to speak a little louder. Yeah.
It's 2 and 2 and
And
2.
two. Right.
It's et nachta,
Yes. After Elokeinu. Right.
so
Yeah.
pasuk.
Yes. Yes. But the idea that the Hashem Elokeinu actually is not essential to the basic meaning of that statement. It's a little piece that draws us into that belief and that commitment.
It's I've been so moved by your saying that and trying it out and listening to it as I say brachot. And it's like, but why do we always do it differently? Or
Yeah. Ah, you mean putting the Hashem and the Elokeinu together? Is that what you're saying by differently?
no, I am very moved by your suggestion as to why we should do so. And
Yes.
yet that's not normally what we hear done in the congregation. In
Mm.
congregations, I have a very limited experience, but in the congregations I've been in,
Well, you're very kind. I would tell you that it's taken me decades and decades, right? Here I am in my 70s and finally sort of thinking it through like this. It's taken me that long. And also why we would draw it out, right? I mean, now there's a good reason to draw it out because you're trying to pack it with all these sorts of various ideas as you're saying them. So, um, I guess with the little bit of time we've got left, let me put the marking here because this is where we're going to stop for today. I guess we'll have one more day to take care of this. Let me see what I can do to put in the arrow. Okay, give me a second. All right, I'll take care of it later. Now I have to think of what it was that I wanted to share with. It's so embarrassing. I can't think of what it was now that I wanted to say. I just can't imagine. All right, it's lost for the moment anyway. So, okay, I guess we'll stop here, and we'll, God willing, meet tomorrow. So I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to stop the recording and thank those who joined us. Thank you all.